Hi there and welcome back to Helen Olivia Virtual Workshops. My name is Lindsay. I'm one of the designers here and I'm going to be walking you through the Ranunculus workshop today. So first of all, you're going to need your bag of materials, which has your vase, which we're using a white 6-inch cylinder vase for this class. You have your piece of chicken wire, and then you're going to need your tools. So I've got my floral knife with me and I've got my clippers. Otherwise, if you don't have either of those on hand, you can use like a small paring knife from your kitchen, just something with a sharp edge, because we want really sharp, nice angled cuts. And then you're going to want to take your vase, if you haven't done this already, and fill it up with room temperature water. You don't want it too hot. It'll make things open really quickly. And you don't want it too cold because you don't want it to shock the stems. So room temperature is perfect. Then we've got our bucket of gorgeous blooms that we're going to be using today, and I'll walk you through everything as we go on the formula sheet that you have in your bag as well. So let's go ahead and get started by taking our chicken wire, and we're going to roll this up into a cylinder. So you're going to make these smooth edges touch, and then once you've got that cylinder shape, you're going to tuck in those pointy edges. So you've got a rounded cylinder, and then you want that those open holes to be at the top of your vase so things are really easy to stick in. With ranunculus, the stems are hardy, quite hardy sometimes, so they can split quite easily on the chicken wire. So just be mindful of that as we're going. If you feel like it's really resisting when you're putting a stem in, take it out, rework it, put it somewhere else, because you don't want to break any of these beautiful stems. We do have a ton of material, so if you break one as we go, don't worry about it, just leave it out. We don't have any traditional kind of greenery today, so we're going to be building our base with our viburnum, which is this snowball viburnum. We've got hellebore, and then we've got an umbrella fern, and that's all going to go on top of our mini green, and that's how we're going to build our base out. So first thing we're going to go for is our mini green, of course. So grab our mini green, you're going to remove the plastic from the top, and you're going to take off any of those low-lying leaves. And then you're going to make those sharp angled cuts, and you want everything about the length of the vase, because you want every stem to hit as close to the bottom as possible. You're going to angle that first one in. We've got 4. So we're going to separate 3 around angled cuts. I've got my first 2 placed. And then I've got one that's kind of little, so I'm going to use that one on the side as well. Sharp cut. And I'm probably going to make this a little bit asymmetrical with everything that we have, and the ranunculus kind of float out a little bit. So don't worry about cutting your vase perfectly in 3s. If you want it to be perfectly round and more rounded in shape, then definitely tuck them equally around. I'm going to go a little bit off kilter today. Then we're going to take our 4th one, and we are going to put it in the center. And you don't want this to float up too high because it's going to float above your flowers, or you're going to have to float your flowers out really high. So you're going to want it to kind of sit above the vase line, but not too tall where it's protruding too much. You just really want it to be that base for the arrangement, and we're going to build on top of it. So now that I've got my mini green placed, I am going to go in with my viburnum. A viburnum is this gorgeous green which matches the mini green perfectly, and it's got this really bouncy, floaty texture. And a lot of these stems you can split. So see this one? I'm going to split that right here. It's got a woody stem. Split that, and you can use 2 pieces there. And then this one, I've got these itty bitty guys on the bottom, and I actually might utilize this one just for an extra bouncy piece. So you're going to take those, and you're going to float them out of your base. So see how that bounces really nicely? Beautiful. And I'm going to give this kind of a wide shape today, and this is where you can really build out that shape. So I'm taking this piece that I've split off, and I'm going to place that in the back here, like that. And then, and any of these leaves that you're worried about will go below your vase line, just take those off, just like we do with all of our flowers. So anything that's low lying, just be mindful that this viburnum stem can break. So be careful taking those off. This one I'm going to put up high. So I'm going to float this one kind of in the center near that mini green. And I promise viburnum always looks a little crazy when you're first putting it in, but everything will fill around nicely. And then I've got my last little piece that I'm going to float out right there. So we're kind of creating that wild textural shape. The next thing I'm going to go for is my umbrella fern. So I'm going to take this umbrella fern, and what we're going to do, mine's a little broken, but that's fine. With something like this, you want to make sure the stem is short enough where it can nestle into your vase. If you keep it too long, it's going to float and it's not going to look pretty. You want it to be integrated into the vase. So since that is a thicker stem, I just use my clippers. If there's anything that you don't like the look of, like I don't love this broken one right here, I am going to cut that off. And then these are quite long, so I'm going to remove that. And then I've got this pretty piece of 5, and I'm going to tuck that kind of centrally and let that flow out of the vase. So really we're just creating a base for everything else to go on top of. And then I've got this, and these are quite long, so they're actually going to be long enough for me to use elsewhere. If it's not long enough where it won't stay in the water, don't use it. But I'm carefully removing these little leaves, and then I'm going to tuck this on the opposite side. So then we've got that floaty umbrella fern, like that. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to grab is my hellebore. Since the hellebore, oh, I'm sorry, I lied. We actually do have bush ivy, but that's okay because we'll tuck it in right now. So I'm going to grab my bush ivy, and I just have a few pieces. You shouldn't have much, so cut that bush ivy, and this is going to be perfect for filling in any of those gaps. There. Yeah, I've just got 3 little pieces. Sorry, I didn't even see that on the formula sheet. And then I'm going to tuck one over here. And it creates that really nice contrast because this bush ivy is nice and dark. And then since I've got one here, I'm going to put one over here. Like that. And that really helps cover up that top of the vase. And now I'm going to go for the hellebore, sorry. And this is something that you can possibly split. So for something like this, I can use this small piece and the big piece. So I'm going to tuck this small piece in. Got this big piece, and these are things that also can really help create that shape. So right here, I've got a gap, so I'm going to place that hellebore there, and you can really put it nice and low. I believe we just have a couple pieces. So this one I'm going to split as well. If it's too short, again, to reach the bottom or near the bottom of this vase, then don't split it and just stick it in as is. I'm going to put that there. And again, this is a really nice, pretty, bouncy texture. And then we've got one more piece, and that is going to live right there behind this little viburnum. So now that we've got our greens placed, then another thing we have that is this really fun texture is heather. And this is this gorgeous light pink heather that we are going to use. I think I only have one piece, so I'm just going to do a little fluffy accent of it over here. And we're going to go with a really nice kind of organic look. So place my heather, let that float out like that, pretty. And now we're going to go for our roses. So the roses we have are our Queen's Crown roses, which are these really pretty, like almost nail polish color, purpley pink roses. And we also have hot spots, which are the hot pink. So the hot pink and the Queen's Crown. So we will go ahead and place our roses. And I'm going to start off with one right there. And I believe we have 8. So I've got that one there. I'm going to place a hot pink over here, like that. I'm going to put a Queen's Crown right up here. And we have 9. Good. Okay. So I'm going to go in high with this Queen's Crown, like that. And then, since I've got a Queen's Crown right here, I'm going to go with a hot pink right above it. And remember, you're removing all of those guard petals and any of the low-lying leaves. These are pretty clean stems, and nothing really has thorns, which is nice, so we don't have to worry about that. And then you're making those nice, clean, sharp cuts at an angle. So since we've got 6 of the hot spot and we've got 3 of the Queen's Crown, I'm going to kind of just do trios around. And I don't want to cover up my heather, so I'm going to, and the longer you keep the stems, the further out you can kind of stick the roses. If you cut them too short, they're going to start falling into your arrangement. So just be mindful of how you want to keep the stems as long as possible at first, because you can always cut again, but you can't make it come back. So there's these other hot spots, excuse me, and over here. So I've actually got a trio. I've got a trio there. I've got a duo here. I'm going to do another 2. So just basically group them in 2s or 3s. That's when it looks most visually pleasing. Like that. And see, we've still got that bouncy viburnum and all that texture coming out. And for my last hot spot, I've got one lone rose back here, so I'm going to go right here with this one. And again, keep it long. The longer your stems, the bigger you can make your arrangement. If you want it really nice and tight, then go a little shorter. Sorry. Okay. That's placed. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is grab for these, it says Charlotte Ranunculus on here. These are clonies. And these are a really expensive variety, and they're really, really big. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. They really fill an arrangement nicely. Again, I'm going to try to keep these long, and I have a kind of a gap right here, and I want to float this really pretty hot pink right there. So cut at a sharp angle, still keeping long because I want these to all kind of shine, and just again beware of the stems because they can be split by the chicken wire. There we go. So I've got that kind of floating above. The next ones I'm going to grab for are the frail ranunculus, and these are super, super cool, roughly scalloped edges, and they always come in this kind of green and pink variety. I have two that look pretty green, but you might have some that are like pretty hot pink with little green accents. So they always look a little different and everyone is unique. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go in with these next because they are bigger and I want to really get the big ones in so I can place everything where I would like. And then we can worry about the little guys. Just adjusting a rose. And I've got this one frilly over here. And another thing we can do with these ranunculus is keep a couple of the same varieties together. So I'm actually going to keep these two frilly ones together over near this piece of heather and just float one out farther than the other, like that. The next, and if you don't like this look or this style, you can tuck them in really tight. Just, it's all about personal preference for how you want it to look. Then we've got these gorgeous plum ranunculus, which are one of my favorite. I would say plum and peach are probably my favorite ranunculus. So I've got a lot of pink right here, so I'm going to break it up with this plum. Like that, and I love the contrast of that. And then I'm going to do the same and stick a plum right over here. Like that. I'm actually going to go a little lower. A little lower in between those roses. And then we've got one more plum. And let's see. If I really want the drama, then I think I'm going to go for a second plum right there. And ranunculus are one of my favorite flowers. And honestly, it's becoming a lot more popular for that to be your favorite flower because a lot of times it's one of the only flowers people really know other than roses. So we've got that one there. And now, once we've got all of our plum ranunculus placed, we're going to go ahead and grab our cappuccinos. And it says cappuccino spray roses on your formula sheet. We don't have any spray roses in this formula, so that was just an error. But we do have cappuccino ranunculus, which are these gorgeous ranunculus, which also have a ton of variation. So these are both cappuccino. They have the color on the edges only. Really, really cool variety. Love when we have these in the shop. So for something like this, if it has a little bud that's about the same length or height as the main bloom, I'm going to leave it because I think it adds a little character. You can totally split these and use the bud elsewhere if you want. You don't have to use it if you don't like the look of it. I'm going to keep it because I think it's cute. So the next thing, and since these are white or lighter, they will also give nice contrast. So I've got this spot right there next to the hellebore that I think it plays off of nicely. So I'm going to do right there. For this one, same thing. I've got a pretty bud, so I'm going to use it. And I'm going to separate these. And I'm going to place pink one there. And then I'm going to stick a bud kind of out here. Add a little interest right there. And actually, I'm going to cut this one actually a little shorter. Here we go. I just love how floaty and bobby they are. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to go for are my butterfly ranunculus. These are super delicate. Also love the texture of these. They're really bouncy. If you ever see like a bread bouquet that if you shake it, it moves a lot of times this can be an ingredient in that. It's just a super bouncy ingredient. Moves really well. So for these, I'm going to keep these long because I definitely want them to float above things. And I've kind of got this mini green blob in the center. So I'm going to stick one of these near my mini green. Float that up. And then, oh, I actually missed a cappuccino. So I'll put my other cappuccino in, this guy. And I'm going to put that right there. And again, I'm going tall and making everything float out because I think they just are so fun. And then I've got one butterfly ranunc here, and I'm going to go low on this side and kind of let it hang a little bit. So just be careful with those stems. Again, look how pretty that texture is. Absolutely love those. Those are probably one of my favorite flowers. And then the last thing we're going to add is our clematis. So our clematis is a little tricky because these blooms can be split, but not really well for a 6-inch cylinder, just because the stems will become a little too short. So what I'm talking about is if we were designing in a petite size vase, this could be something that we would be able to split and use twice. I'm not sure if I'll be able to. Let me try on one. So take any of the leaves that you think will be in the water off. And then it's actually a fine height. So I'm going to stick one right away right here because I want that little purple floaty texture. And then I've got another. So when you do split them, you're going to need to use them at the base of the arrangement. See how it's long enough there, but if I'm putting it up here, the stem is not long enough and it's not going to stay in water. So if you do split it, use them around the base. So I've used one here. I'm going to do the same on the opposite side, and I'm going to use this one on the base like that. And I've got those floaty pieces. Then for this one, I actually have a piece that's a little damaged, so I'm not going to use that, which is perfect because I'm going to use this tall stem up high. These giant leaves are not going to do me any favors, so I'm taking those off. They're probably going to end up below the water line, so it's not necessary to keep those on, so just pull those off. And then right here is where it's really calling for one because I've got viburnum on top of mini green, so I've got a big green blob right at the top. So I'm going to put one piece like that, and it's floating above. And then I've got another piece that I want to keep long, so I'm not able to split and use that other piece again. But now where should my final clematis go? Okay, so I'm gonna put the last one over here. That, and make sure that you adjust anything as you go. Nothing is permanent. You can always move stuff around. But that, I believe, is all the ingredients, unless I've thrown something on the ground. And that is our beautiful ranunculus arrangement. And this viburnum is actually driving me nuts. There we go. That is it. It's cool, it's bouncy, it's floaty. All the different textures of ranunculus are so pretty and they all work really well together. And I hope you enjoyed this class. Make sure that you are adding fresh water to your arrangement every day. You can stick your finger in there on the base to see if the water line has dropped and just add fresh water to keep your flowers happy. Don't put them anywhere that's too cold or drafty, and don't put them anywhere that's too warm, like near a heat source. So they like to be just right at room temperature, and they will be happy. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing all the different varieties of ranunculus, and thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon for one of our other upcoming workshops. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.